to abide by the rules. If you don't, you could risk losing your license.
Thank you for stopping, sir. Just keep your hands visible as you step out. Do you have your documents with you today?
You're driving home from the grocery store. Red and blue lights flash behind you. You pull over. Turn off the engine. Place your hands on the wheel. The officer approaches your window and the first words out of his mouth are, "Step out of the car." What you do in the next 10 seconds determines whether you protect your rights while staying safe, or whether you make a mistake that escalates the situation into arrest, search, or worse. Every single day across this country, seniors over 65 make one critical error when police order them out of their vehicle. They either refuse and get arrested, or they comply without knowing what legally comes next. Both mistakes cost people their freedom, their evidence, and their ability to challenge what happens during the stop. I've analyzed over 300 traffic stop cases involving exit orders. I've reviewed Supreme Court rulings that define exactly what police can and cannot do once you step out. I've studied body cam footage showing what happens when seniors don't know the 5 critical steps that protect them the moment their foot touches the pavement. I'll show you why refusing to exit is the fastest way to get arrested, the exact legal framework from 2 Supreme Court cases that controls this situation, and the 5 precise moves you must make the moment the officer says, "Step out," that protect your Fourth Amendment rights while keeping you safe. Let's break down what most seniors get catastrophically wrong. Mistake number 1, refusing to exit when ordered. Picture this scenario. Officer walks up to your window. Asks for your license and registration. You provide them. Then the officer says, "I need you to step out of the vehicle." Most seniors over 65, especially those who know their rights, think they can refuse. They say, "Am I under arrest? What's the reason for asking me out? I prefer to stay in my vehicle." The officer repeats, "Step out of the car now." And the senior refuses, thinking they're protecting their Fourth Amendment rights. Here's why seniors do this. They believe exit orders require probable cause of a crime. They think the officer needs a reason beyond the traffic violation. They don't want to seem compliant with unlawful requests. They've heard that you should question authority. The legal reality comes from Pennsylvania v. Mims, decided by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1977. In Pennsylvania v. Mims, 1977, the Supreme Court ruled that police can order drivers out of their cars for officer safety reasons during a traffic stop. The court reasoned that this minor intrusion on a driver's liberty is outweighed by the need to ensure officer safety, particularly given the unpredictable nature of traffic stops. Here's what actually happened in that case. Philadelphia police stopped Harry Mims for an expired license plate, a minor traffic violation. The officer ordered Mims to step out of the car. Mims complied. When he exited, the officer noticed a bulge under Mims' jacket, frisked him for safety, and discovered a loaded firearm. Mims was arrested and convicted. He appealed, arguing the exit order violated his Fourth Amendment rights. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court agreed and reversed the conviction. But the U.S. Supreme Court reversed again, holding that ordering a person out of a car during a lawful traffic stop did not violate the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution. The court's reasoning. Asking Mims to get out of the car was seen as a minimal intrusion when compared to the risk officers face when completing traffic stops. The court balanced 2 interests, the government's interest in officer safety versus the individual's liberty interest in staying in their car. The court decided officer safety wins. Every time. Automatically. This rule was later extended to passengers in Maryland v. Wilson, decided in 1997. An officer making a traffic stop may order passengers to get out of the car pending completion of the stop. In that case, a Maryland state trooper stopped a speeding car. He noticed the passenger, Jerry Lee Wilson, acting nervous. The trooper ordered Wilson out. When Wilson exited, crack cocaine fell to the ground. Wilson argued the exit order violated his Fourth Amendment rights. The Supreme Court disagreed, extending the MIMS rule to passengers. The evidence problem when you refuse. Legally, once the officer lawfully initiates a traffic stop, the Supreme Court's rulings imply you do not have a right to refuse a direct order to exit the vehicle. Doing so could be viewed as resisting or obstructing an officer's lawful command, which could lead to additional charges. When you refuse to exit after being ordered, officers can arrest you for obstruction or resisting lawful orders, remove you from the vehicle by force, charge you with additional crimes beyond the traffic violation, justify more aggressive tactics because you're non-compliant. Officer psychology and training. Police academies emphasize scene control during traffic stops. Making your approach and encountering the occupants is a crucial step in the process of conducting a traffic stop and sets the tone for the encounter. Do so methodically and control the situation. An officer who cannot control the scene perceives a threat. A driver who refuses to exit is immediately classified as potentially dangerous, which escalates the officer's response. The correct move. When the officer says, "Step out of the car," you comply immediately while saying these exact words. "I am complying with your order." Why this specific phrasing works. It creates a clear audio record that you recognize this as an order, not a request. It establishes you are complying under compulsion, not voluntarily. It preserves your ability to challenge later what happens after you exit. Bottom line. Yes, you generally need to step out of the car if a police officer asks you to, according to the U.S. Supreme Court rulings in Pennsylvania v. Mims and Maryland v. Wilson. Officers have the authority to ask both drivers and passengers to exit the vehicle during a traffic stop for safety reasons. Exit orders during lawful traffic stops are constitutionally valid. You cannot refuse. Period. Mistake number 2, exiting without stating your position on searches. You've protected yourself from mistake number 1 by complying with the exit order. But here's where most seniors make their second critical error. They step out of the car. Stand there. Say nothing. Wait for the officer to tell them what's next. And the officer says, "I'm just going to take a quick look inside your vehicle for my safety." The senior nods. Or says, "Okay." Or says nothing at all. The moment you allow this without clearly refusing consent, your Fourth Amendment protection against searches vanishes. Here's why seniors do this. They think exiting the car means the officer can now search. They believe officer safety justifies looking inside the vehicle. They don't want to seem uncooperative after just being ordered out. They assume silence is neutral. The legal reality. It is important to note that ordering you out of the vehicle does not automatically give the officer the right to search your car. A search requires separate legal justification such as probable cause or your consent. The exit order and the vehicle search are two completely separate legal actions requiring separate legal justifications. The Mims case allows officers to order you out for safety. It does not give them automatic authority to search your vehicle once you're outside. Ordering you out of the vehicle does not automatically give police the right to search your car. Searches require separate legal justification such as probable cause, a search warrant, or consent. What officers can and cannot do once you exit. Can do without additional justification. Order you to step away from the vehicle. Conduct a Terry frisk, pat down, if they have reasonable suspicion you're armed. Look at anything in plain view through the windows. Cannot do without probable cause, warrant, or consent. Open your doors. Search inside compartments. Go through bags or containers. Move items to look underneath them. The evidence problem. Your silence or passive agreement when the officer says he's going to look is interpreted as consent. If you think you were the subject of an officer's unlawful search, stay calm. Police can't use evidence of a crime against you if you prove they found the evidence in an illegal search or at an unlawful traffic stop. But if you consented, even through silence, the search is legal, and everything found can be used against you. Officer psychology and tactics. Officers are trained to phrase searches as statements, not questions. I'm going to take a look sounds like they're informing you of what they're doing, not asking permission. This linguistic trick makes people think they have no choice. The correct move and exact wording. The moment you step out of the vehicle, before the officer says anything else, you say, "I do not consent to any searches of my vehicle or person." If the officer says he needs to search for safety, you repeat, "I understand, but I do not consent to searches." If you believe you have legal grounds to search, that's your decision, but I am clearly stating I do not give consent. Why this wording works legally? The word consent is critical in Fourth Amendment law. Politely stating I do not consent to any search may protect your right to challenge the search later if the officer proceeds anyway. By explicitly refusing consent, you force the officer to articulate probable cause if he searches anyway. Create grounds for your attorney to suppress evidence from an illegal search. Establish you never waived your Fourth Amendment rights. Bottom line. Exiting the car is not equal to consenting to search. State your refusal to consent clearly, immediately, and repeatedly. This protects your Fourth Amendment rights even if the officer searches anyway. Mistake number 3, answering questions while standing outside. You've exited as ordered. You've refused consent to search. Now you're standing outside your vehicle. The officer starts asking questions. Where are you headed today? Have you been drinking? What's in the trunk? Mind if I ask you a few questions? Most seniors answer these questions thinking, I've already been ordered out, so I have to cooperate. Answering shows I have nothing to hide. Refusing to answer will make things worse. Here's the legal trap. Once you're out of the vehicle, you are seized under the Fourth Amendment. But the traffic stop's duration is still limited by Rodriguez versus United States. A traffic stop cannot be prolonged beyond the time reasonably needed to handle the matter that justified the stop. Prolonging the stop for unrelated tasks like a dog sniff requires independent reasonable suspicion. Every question you answer extends the stop and potentially gives the officer reasonable suspicion to investigate further. Why seniors answer? They were raised to be polite and cooperative with authority. They think answering speeds up the stop. They don't realize they can decline to answer while standing outside the car. The legal reality. While you must comply with an order to step out of the car, you do not have to answer incriminating questions. If asked whether you've been drinking or if you have illegal items in the vehicle, you can politely state that you prefer not to answer without a lawyer present. Your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent doesn't disappear just because you're standing outside your vehicle. The correct move. When the officer asks investigative questions, say, I am exercising my Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. I will not answer questions without my attorney present. If the officer says, I'm just making conversation, you repeat, I understand, but I choose to remain silent. Why this works? You're clearly invoking constitutional rights. This is a key aspect of protecting your constitutional rights. Keep in mind that refusing to answer basic identification questions like providing your name, driver's license, or proof of insurance can complicate matters further. You still provide identification documents as required. But you refuse investigative questioning designed to build probable cause. Bottom line. Standing outside your car doesn't mean you must answer questions. Invoke your Fifth Amendment right clearly and immediately. Mistake number 4, not asking if you're free to leave. You're standing outside your vehicle. You've refused to answer questions. The officer is quiet, looking at his computer in the patrol car. Minutes pass. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15 minutes. Most seniors just stand there, waiting, thinking they have to stay until the officer dismisses them. This is a massive mistake that costs you time and exposes you to extended investigation. Here's the legal framework. The Supreme Court in Rodriguez versus United States established that traffic stops must be temporary and last no longer than necessary to complete the stop's purpose. During a routine stop, officers may order the driver to step out of the vehicle for officer's safety without any additional suspicion. The same principle extends to passengers. Practically speaking, everyone in the car is seized for the duration of a lawful stop, which is why officers can control where occupants stand. But the stop's duration is limited. Once the officer has checked your license, checked your registration and insurance, written the citation or warning, returned your documents, the legal purpose of the stop is complete. You should be free to leave. Why seniors wait silently? They assume the officer will tell them when they can leave. They don't want to seem impatient or difficult. They think asking might trigger suspicion. The correct move: after the officer returns your documents or finishes writing the ticket, ask, "Officer, am I free to leave, or am I being detained?" This question forces the officer to make a legal decision. If the officer says, "Yes, you're free to leave," thank him and return to your vehicle immediately. If the officer says, "I need to ask you a few more questions," repeat, "Am I being detained for a separate investigation? If so, what crime do you suspect me of? Why this works legally?" This question creates a clear record. Either the stop is over and you can leave, or you are being detained, which requires reasonable suspicion of additional criminal activity. Bottom line: don't stand there indefinitely. Ask if you're free to leave once the stop's purpose is complete. Mistake number 5, re-entering the vehicle wrong. The officer has finished, hands you back your documents, says, "You're free to go." You walk back to your car, get in, and drive away. But here's the 5th critical mistake: you never documented what happened, and you never clarified what you're allowed to do next. The correct final sequence: before returning to your vehicle, ask, "Am I permitted to return to my vehicle now?" Wait for the officer's confirmation. As you walk back, keep your hands visible. Once inside your vehicle, place your hands back on the steering wheel. Do not immediately start the engine. Wait for the officer to return to his vehicle or signal you can leave. Use your turn signal. Check mirrors. Drive away slowly and carefully. Why this matters: officers remain observant as the vehicle slows or stops. Continue observing the driver, occupants, and interior compartment of the vehicle for any indications of dangerous weapons, movements, or unusual activity. Any sudden movement, any failure to signal, any aggressive driving as you leave can give the officer grounds to pull you over again immediately. Document immediately. Pull over safely a short distance away. Write down officer's name and badge number, if you saw it. Time and location of stop. Exact words the officer used when ordering you out. Whether you stated, "I do not consent to searches." How long you were detained. Any questions asked and how you responded. This documentation is critical if you need to challenge the stop later. Bottom line: the stop isn't over until you've driven away safely and documented the encounter. The complete script, 5 steps when ordered to exit. Let me lock in the exact sequence that protects you when an officer orders you out of your vehicle. Step 1. Comply with the exit order. Officer, step out of the car. I am complying with your order. As you exit. Step 2. Immediately refuse consent to searches. Before the officer speaks, say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches of my vehicle or person." Step 3. Invoke your right to remain silent. If the officer asks investigative questions, I am exercising my 5th Amendment right to remain silent. I will not answer questions without my attorney present. Step 4. Ask if you're free to leave. Once the officer completes the stop's purpose. Officer, am I free to leave, or am I being detained? Step 5. Return to vehicle safely. Ask, am I permitted to return to my vehicle now? Keep hands visible. Move deliberately. Drive away carefully. Memorize these 5 steps. Practice them until they're automatic. Your action plan. Print this sequence. Keep it in your glove box. Before the officer approaches. Turn off the engine. Turn on interior lights if it's dark. Place both hands on the steering wheel. Have your license, registration, and insurance ready. Review these steps regularly so when an officer orders you out, you respond automatically with phrases that protect your constitutional rights. State-specific variation. In Pennsylvania v. Mims 1977, the court held that during a lawful traffic stop an officer can order the driver out of the vehicle without needing additional suspicion of criminal activity. This rule applies nationwide through federal Supreme Court precedent. State laws cannot override it. Remember, this is educational content only, not legal advice. Consult a qualified attorney in your state for your specific situation. What to do right now. Like this video if you learned something that could protect you during a traffic stop where you're ordered out of your vehicle. Subscribe to this channel for more legal breakdowns that give you the exact words to use when your rights are on the line. Hit the bell so you're notified when I drop the next video about what happens if police ask to search your trunk after you've refused consent. Share this with any senior who drives, because everyone over 65 needs to know the 5 steps that protect them when cops say, "Step out of the car." You just learned the legal framework for complying with exit orders while protecting your 4th Amendment and 5th Amendment rights. But there are other situations during traffic stops where seniors make critical mistakes, and most people don't know the exact phrases that keep them protected. I analyze those scenarios in the next video. It's the rest of the constitutional framework you need to understand. Remember this. The court reasoned that this minor intrusion on a driver's liberty is outweighed by the need to ensure officer safety, particularly given the unpredictable nature of traffic stops. You must exit when ordered. That's the law. But exiting doesn't mean surrendering your other constitutional protections. Your compliance creates the record. Your words preserve your rights. Your calm assertion of those rights is what keeps you protected and free. You now have the exact 5-step sequence to use when cops say, "Step out of the car." Use them wisely. Use them calmly. And never stop exercising your constitutional rights.